Joe, if you'd ever like to also try choose where to post your Zoom, share to your page. If you'd ever like to try live on YouTube, we could try that at some point as well versus just always on Facebook. Let me get to our page here.
Why not?
Right. And our description. Okay. Summer safety and okay. All right, we are live and we're a few minutes early. I'm all set with cell phone for taking questions, etc. So let's just give it a minute since we are a bit early. This is unusual, Joe. Usually it's the other way around. We're usually, because of technology or whatever the case may be, we're working to get everything up and going. Okay, great. Our captions are going and we're all good. So,
Okay.
all right, we're just going to get started. There you go. So, Joe, welcome. Naamu Harvey, who is a part of the team at Stanley Law. She's a summer intern on the team and a student at Syracuse University. Good morning, Naamu. And welcome to Joe Stanley, of course. Joe knows. And once again, we are doing a webinar to support you knowing your rights, knowing your liabilities, understanding that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as Joe would say. So today we are talking summer liability, summer safety and personal liability. So all things ATVs, boating, e-bikes, anything, pool parties, there'll be lots of those we hope for you. And we want to walk you through the considerations. You want to be sure that you and your family and loved ones, friends, anyone who walks onto your property or onto your boat, etc., rides your ATV, that you're safe and taking all necessary precautions. Because, Joe, we want people to have fun, right? But we want them to also keep in mind at the very same time, it's important to be smart. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Joe and let you talk a little bit about why you thought this was important, Joe, and then we can begin with your slides.
Well, you know, we get calls about people getting hurt all the time, and summertime has its own special challenges, and a lot of things we're going to talk about are things that really do happen, and that unfortunately, if you don't plan for safety and plan for what you're going to do if something unfortunate does happen, it's too late when it does. And this is just a reminder about everybody has fun. And yes, 90% of the time or 95% of the time, nothing happens. Even when people are doing stupid stuff, nothing happens. Unfortunately, that 5% seems to be getting bigger every year for whatever reason. And this is a way to protect you, your family, and those who are celebrating the summer with you. So let's get to it, and we'll just go in the order of the slides, and that way I can keep myself. And Naamu is going to tell us about, when I was her age, I'm sure I engaged in behaviors that may have been stupid at sometimes. And
no,
I didn't post those on the internet or post them on social media. Fortunately, they weren't posted for me either. So there's no record and there's no recollection anymore either. So let's move on. But she can now admit on social media to her transgressions. So as we go forward,
right. We're looking into we're looking into all the fun stuff that you do, Naamu, and we've all been there. No one's immune to it. So with that, I'm going to pull up your slides and we'll begin. So Okay, Joe. So we're talking summer safety and personal liability.
And those are our topics.
Yes, RV and camping, so much fun, pool parties. So
Okay.
in fact, I just, as I was going to say, Naamu's helping us with this. We just went on to TikTok. It's official as of this week. We're on TikTok, and there was a great TikTok video actually of Stephanie Vaselli, an attorney at Stanley Law, who talked about pool safety in particular and how to be safe around that. And I actually learned something about pool safety that I thought I knew and didn't know. So, okay, here we go. E-bikes.
Well, e-bikes, this is something that, of course, I had to be familiarize myself with because people confuse and don't really understand that e-bikes, mopeds and scooters. E-bikes are electrified bikes. And as this outlines, there are 3 different classes of e-bikes. The one thing that needs to be understood is that these are a substitute for bicycles, and since that they are regulated as bicycles. And so these are the classifications. And we can move on to the next slide, which is more important when we start looking at class. E-bikes are not motor vehicles, which is important for insurance purposes. They are bicycles. And as you can see, class 1 and 2 e-bikes are permitted on any public road, bike path, or trail where bicycles are allowed. Class 3 e-bikes are restricted from using bicycle lanes, path, or trails unless specifically allowed by local authorities. You have to be 16 years of age to operate. And if you're under 12, you have to wear a helmet. But of course, everyone should wear a helmet or when you're engaging in any kind of activity that involves the potential for a fall.
Now, interestingly, Joe, my daughter had you pointed that out about insurance. My daughter was coming around a corner. This is a couple summers ago, and on her own road to her house, which is a private road, and coming around the corner was another vehicle, oncoming traffic vehicle. But then an e-bike was in her lane heading right toward her because he was passing the vehicle like a vehicle would. And she took the ditch, and the e-bike rider, for whatever reason, made a bad choice and also took the same exact ditch, went left. She went right and he went left, and he hit her. $3,500 damage to the front of her vehicle. And when I called my insurance company, they said, guess what? What did they say, Joe?
Well, they are, unfortunately, there's a big crossover as to what these are. And sometimes these vehicles can go faster than they're permitted. They're supposed to only go 20 miles per hour or whatever. But since they're not motor vehicles, they don't have to be registered and subject to separate insurance. They are covered by homeowners insurance and rental policy, just like if you were riding a regular bicycle. Unfortunately, a lot of people riding and operating these vehicles aren't members of a household that has homeowners insurance or renters insurance. And when these bikes are being rented, the law to me is unclear. For instance, the city of Syracuse has these e-bikes all over the place. Do they have any legal responsibility for the various and sundry people that are out riding these bikes,
right,
and not using them properly?
right.
Interesting. I don't know about the law about that. I think there's going to be more cases. They're going to flesh that out. But the bottom line is, if you want to be safe, you operate them properly. You don't soup them up. You don't make them go faster than 20 miles an hour. By the way, I was on a trail a week ago, and there was a couple of these went by me. If they were going 20 miles an hour, it seemed awfully fast when you're walking along a trail.
Sure.
But so
And they do come out of nowhere. It's just like some of those speed bikes, the motorcycles that are what they affectionately call crotch rockets, when they come out of nowhere because they're going 100 miles an hour. The e-bikes feel that way too. Like you said, Joe, it's all perspective. When you're just walking, and one of these fly by you, it just seems like, just like with a snowmobile or anything, when you're talking about speed, Joe, you're talking about a a twig, something comes out and, a dog, something comes out in front of you. And when you've got speed behind you and all that momentum, you've got very little time to react.
Well, and again, speed is relative to how fast you're going also. So, and again, a lot of these get confused with mopeds and scooters and dirt bikes and those things as such. Those are all classified as motor vehicles, are supposed to be registered and insured, and those are not covered by homeowners policies or rental policies. The same way ATVs are not covered, which we'll get to them. So,
have you ever ridden one, Naamu? Have you ever ridden an e-bike?
I've personally never ridden an e-bike, but I have tried one of the electric scooters when I was in New York City a couple times.
Did they have license plates? Did they have license plates on them?
I don't recall any license plate or anything like that.
Well, see, that's part of the issue is that they are supposed to be those are motorized vehicles, and so and again, the law is problematic. Do you have to have a license? No. To operate these? No. And so, training is always important. So this is just to let people know this is an ongoing field. If you're going to operate them, be careful. You also have to keep an eye out for them because I think they're going to increase in usage. Boating. Yes. Well, every boat is supposed to be registered. You should always insure your boat. And there are all sorts of rules and regulations about boating. First of all, everybody now essentially in New York should have to have a boater safety course in order to operate a boat in New York. I think the exemption is it's only like people born before a certain year that are exempt if you have a driver's license. I know I even have I have to take the course, even though I think I took it 20 years ago. I have to take it again, but so you're supposed to have the course to be able to drive, and you could be subject to a ticket and fine if you don't. There are numerous regulations if you own a boat you should be aware of with all the equipment you have on a boat. I'm not going to go through it. Insurance on a boat is in critical importance. I've handled some very tragic cases over the years in which devastating injuries have occurred on boats that were not insured, and you do not want to be personally liable for a bad event that happens on a boat.
Every summer there's more than one typically tragic headline about.
Yes, and it's usually related to alcohol.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, especially if you're driving a boat, I think there should be at least one DD on the boat who's driving, who's not drinking.
Yeah, and in fact, you get charged. It goes on your regular driver's license and insurance if you drive it drunk on a boat. So you have serious consequences. And yeah, it's, alcohol and boats run together, but they shouldn't be in the driving department.
Well,
I think we've already gone through all of this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, boater safety. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Navigation lights between sunset and sunrise, and operators. Okay. So yeah, because I know that they teach a boating safety course, I think, in all of the high schools, don't they?
Well, yeah, and again, if they want to drive a boat, they have to take the same course. So, and again, this is not up to date because almost everybody has to have and this is personal watercraft. This is really jet skis. This is even a different. They put this that's a separate driving course for operators.
Jet skis. Yeah.
And there's different issues with jet skis and personal watercraft, whatever they want to call them. There's been a lot of issues with them.
Life jackets, etc. And anyone under the age of 12 must have a life jacket on. Anyone using a personal watercraft must wear a life jacket, and anyone being towed. So interesting.
All common sense. Those really shouldn't have to be imposed by law, but
okay, ATVs. So have you ridden ATVs, Naamu? I think you mentioned that.
Yes, I've read a couple outside the country, and also maybe one or two times.
Right,
here.
because on a lot of different trips and excursions and things like that, you can get them on the islands and to take yourself around the island, etc. Right?
Did you have a helmet when you used them?
You know what? I honestly feel like I didn't, but oh,
Yeah.
actually I did. I did. I have a picture and I did have a helmet on.
I have a picture, I have photographic evidence, Joe.
I'm gonna say, because I asked that question and most people, they don't even think about it because
Yeah, but I
especially
mean,
when, yeah,
you don't need a license to ride one. So one of my friends, she's from the city and she doesn't have a license. So I mean, the ride did get a little bit scary because she doesn't know how to drive, but I think you should have a license for
well,
ATV.
hey, this is a true point, and let's move on. A true point is that, yeah, some of these are not not intuitive, and there are different UTVs and ATVs operate differently than cars also, and they're just not the same. Okay, these are, essentially they're supposed to be registered and they should always be insured. Most people don't insure them. They're not covered by a homeowner's policy or a rentals policy. So if they're not insured and you're using them even on your own property, you might think they're covered. They are absolutely not.
Yeah, see, that's non-intuitive too, because like you said, the e-bikes are covered by your homeowners. You could be anywhere, right? But they're covered by your
Yes.
homeowners or rental. But your ATVs, you could be out on your farm, on your property, etc. And that's where a lot of them are ridden.
Well, the
Typically.
farm vehicle, they may be classified as a farm vehicle and covered under a farm policy, but a regular homeowner,
okay.
a regular homeowner, because ATVs can be considered agricultural equipment.
Right.
So that's a little bit different. But ATVs and mopeds and UTVs are motorized vehicles, and they are always excluded from homeowners and rental policies. E-bikes are not considered motor vehicles, although in some states they are, and they wouldn't be covered at all, Colorado being one. That comes to mind. So
Interesting. Okay.
now this is always good, under 10, and I know people who allow their children under 10 to operate them. They're not supposed to be, and you're supposed to have completed this course and they're supposed to be supervised. This presents all sorts of legal liability if you let somebody operate your UTV who's under 16. Has happened. You're exposing yourself to all sorts of liability, especially if you have an uninsured ATV, which most of them are. So you're just
Right.
taking, you're entrusting someone to someone who you haven't trained. And by law, they're supposed to have training.
Joe, we have a question. What does UTV mean?
It's a utility terrain vehicle. They're like mini trucks. They're ATVs with the baskets on the back. They're utility.
Okay, like
Yeah.
would a gator, like those gators, would that be
Yeah, I
considered?
mean, yeah, they
Okay.
have the utility, yeah. But
Gotcha.
they're the same rules. And by the way, you can have the same issues with entrusting a UTV or an ATV to someone who's over 16 if they don't know what they're doing. And if you don't have insurance, that's a huge problem. And this is all, again, common sense, safety issues. You're
But you
supposed to
know,
have,
Joe, it might not be common sense to people my age because I didn't even think about ATV insurance, pool party insurance. Well, like not pool party insurance, but home insurance. When you're having a pool party, those thoughts like that would never cross my mind before working here.
well, and again, that's why we do these. And wearing a helmet. That's why I said it's required. How many times do I see people riding ATVs that don't have helmets on? I mean, all the time. Eye protection, gloves. I can tell you that the last time I saw somebody wearing goggles using an ATV, I might have been the first. But it's the same thing with alcohol with any of these. It's bad idea.
So do the rules apply on an ATV with respect to alcohol and drugs, Joe, as they would for boating and
No,
vehicles?
not yet.
No.
Well, you
Okay.
still get arrested. I mean, if you're operating one, you'll still get arrested. I mean, it's still a violation. It doesn't go over onto your driver's license. I don't think so. They were talking about doing that. They may have, but I don't think so yet. But it's still a big charge anyways. If you're operating it on a
Right.
public road, it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay. And by the way, on that last point, within your skill level and at a safe and appropriate speed, I would think ATVs, the bulk of issues are with speed.
Speed and
Because if
alcohol.
you're just putt-putting around on a trail on an ATV, there's very little chance you're going to get hurt. It's the daredevil, right?
Well, watching
most
what you're
cases.
doing, like everything else.
Mm,
Yeah,
distraction. Sure. Okay.
we already covered this. Okay.
RV and
RV,
camping. Oh,
camping, okay, well, camping, just a reminder, make sure that your vehicle and your trailer, we've talked about this, people have tires, trailers, camping trailers or whatever, tires on trailers and inspections on trailers are always an issue. Remember, they're supposed to be separately inspected. And you'll get a ticket if you don't. Tires are notoriously bad on these. And you also, people who don't drive RVs regularly, again, need to acquaint themselves with them when you get them out on the road. Also,
there's not really courses in that, are there, Joe? Unlike if you're boating or for snowmobiling, et cetera, there's not.
No, there isn't.
You just have to learn,
Yeah.
through trial and error in a big old parking lot, I guess. Or were there
Well,
supposed to be points? They're not supposed to be points on these. I just want to make sure I'm not screwing
No, there
something
isn't.
up.
And by the way,
Okay.
people hauling trailers don't really know a lot about what they're doing either. But as a reminder with RVs and campers, smoke, carbon monoxide detectors on boats where people sleep in their heaters, campers and RVs are just as relevant during the summer. There are surprisingly large numbers of deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Remember that years ago, Joe? It was so sad. It wasn't out in Brewerton. There was like a gentleman and his girlfriend. You remember that story?
Yeah, well, I
And
was
they
on a
found
boat,
them?
but it happens. It happens in RVs. It happens in hotel rooms. I mean, we just had it in the news, a couple in Mexico, they get carbon monoxide is an insidious thing. And it's not just a wintertime thing. Not just a
Yeah, I'm
wintertime.
trying to remember the boat incident, whether it was in off season or I don't
No, I
think
think it was the
I think
summertime.
it
It was
was
the
the
summertime.
summertime. I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the summertime and they just slept on the boat that night and did not
Yeah.
wake up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredibly tragic.
And I think we didn't talk about pool parties and summer events, which we can wrap up with
Yes.
graduation parties and pool parties and parties in general. If you're sponsoring a party, on your property, or you're sponsoring a party and it's not even on your property, do you have legal liability for making sure that the events are safe? Interesting question when it's not on your property, if you're actually sponsoring it. And I don't know, and I guess it doesn't come into play, but there's a lot of social media events that are sponsored parties, so to speak, that you are sponsoring a party to come here or come there. And lots of people show up, and then sometimes bad things happen because there's too many people, there's not any supervision. Do you have legal liability for that? You may very well have legal liability. Most of the time there's no assets for people to go after. But, if you sponsor an event and or should know that there's going to be problems, or you don't take any effort to make sure there isn't, you may have legal liability. And that's for the younger, social media generates all sorts of things different than just a regular party that you're going to have for graduation or just for the summer. If you're going to have an event at your house, you have a responsibility to make sure that the people coming are reasonably safe. Okay. That's the same rule there is for everything. And so what does that mean? If there's a dangerous condition, you need to correct it. If a dangerous condition arises, you need to take some steps to prevent it. You can't serve alcohol to minors, and that's under 21. There's strict liability for that. That is a big no-no, by the way. If you're an adult and you're serving under 21, whether you think that should be the law or not, it's still a strict liability issue. It's caused problems over the years. And even for adults, if you serve a visibly intoxicated adult and they go out and do something, you may be legally responsible.
So let's put up a scenario here. And Naamu, you may have been in this kind of scenario as well. Joe, you talked about like an off-site party. So let's say, okay, I'm going to throw a graduation party. I'm going to rent a facility. Maybe it's a VFW. Maybe it's an American Legion. Maybe it's just a party venue that
maybe it's the public
is
park. Maybe it's
right,
the
or
street out
maybe
in
it's a
front of
public
your
park,
house.
right? So you're throwing the party, but it's not on your property, and someone under 21 consumes alcohol, you're responsible?
Well, again, are they consuming it or are you giving it to them? Are you
Mm.
providing it? I mean, that
Right.
somebody consuming
that
it is not,
distinction,
that's
right.
it's not a consumption issue. It's you providing it. And are you responsible for people who come and bring it in? I mean, there's all sorts of security issues, and that's part of the problem about throwing a party in an unrestricted space. There's the risk of all sorts of unknowns and unpredictables happening, which is the problem with a social media party, is that you may intend to only invite 50 people and you end up with 500. And there, you get to those levels, it's an uncontrollable mess.
Have you ever been a part of that, Naamu, where someone, whether through the university, something like that, where somebody starts a party and then suddenly it's
Yeah, I've
viral?
been to several of those in high school and in college, where you just see it on social media and you just go, you show up. There's tens of hundreds of people there just hanging out.
Yeah, and if you're the landlord or you're the tenant there, and that usually that's grounds to get you immediately kicked out of your apartment, because there's now huge restrictions on that because, there's all
Well,
sorts of
see,
lot.
Yeah. Most of our parties are at public areas, so
Well, and again, that's the can you then, since there's a digital track record, I post that. And I'm saying there's a party. You say that this is, and again, I don't know if if I had money, I would never do it. But assuming the person posting it, he has no assets, so he doesn't care if he gets sued. But I'm saying if you post it, come and have a party, there's going to be whatever it is available. I don't know what you're promising. Everybody's getting together to do whatever, but you could theoretically be responsible for sponsoring a party where bad things happen because you either knew or should have known that events were going to get out of control, or you didn't even take any steps to care. I don't know that anybody's actually, they've gone after Airbnb for these kind of issues because things have gone out of control. They go after landlords and tenants who have them on their property because, okay, yeah, we didn't know all these people were going to show up. Well, they did. You didn't do anything about it. But I don't know where that goes, but it does happen. And I don't, the law sometimes, lawyers can only pursue cases where there's a reasonable chance of helping somebody out. And going after somebody that has no assets is not that's a fool's errand. So
what's a case, Joe? We'll wrap this up with what's a really unusual case, or one that just for whatever reason kind of sticks out in your mind over the years around this personal liability and parties, et cetera, et cetera. What were the circuit, or with a boating or ATV, something that just may stick out that would be interesting to share to demonstrate what you've been talking about today?
Well, I mean, I've had terrible boating accidents, horrific injuries where there was no insurance on a young girl. I mean, that was one that sticks in my mind. I really couldn't help her because there was no insurance, and it was her father's fault, and he didn't have any insurance. I've had ATV accidents on people's property where they let teenagers operate them. They have no idea what they're doing and have gotten horrific injuries. They have, a couple acres of land and they just let them go. No helmets, no training, no anything. And, you get teenagers and they're not, even when they know what they're doing, they do kind of crazy things. So, it happens with dirt bikes. It happens with ATVs. You don't want to be in that scenario. You want everybody to enjoy it and be safe because again, all the money in the world isn't going to bring back the devastating injuries that these people suffer if you go ahead and engage in these things unwisely.
Well, with that, so every month or two, we do an educational webinar just like this one to educate, to support, to advocate, and inform. And you can go on the Stanley Law Office's YouTube channel and you can view all of these webinars. You can also see them on stanleylawoffices.com under webinars. There are also videos in both of those places, the website and on YouTube, that are some of the most frequently asked questions that the firm gets around personal injury, workers' compensation, Social Security, slip and falls, what in Joe's language we call premises liabilities. You fall, you slip and you fall, you get hurt on someone else's property, whether it be municipal or private property. And the videos are super helpful, and we encourage you to avail yourself of those because they're free. And all phone calls, all consultations with Joe and the team at Stanley Law are free and confidential. So if you have any legal questions relating to personal injury or not, right, Joe, because you take those questions on your radio shows all week long, legal questions, just trying to be helpful. You can phone the office at 1-800-608-3333. Again, it's StanleyLawOffices.com. Follow Stanley Law on TikTok. Follow, comment, like, share, send us questions.
And
your
I
input.
want to thank Naamu and Amaya. They are, and if anybody
Yeah.
has any questions that they would like addressed on Instagram or TikTok, send them directly to them. They are doing a great job, and I would like to thank them for that. And it's nice to have somebody who likes to do those kind of things. Since that's not one of my favorite things in the world.
No,
So,
Joe, no, I don't really see you as a TikTok user.
Well,
How
going
about
off
you,
of Joe's
Naamu?
point, going off of Joe's point, yes, follow us on our TikTok page. We just launched yesterday, and we'll be posting 3 videos a week, just little easy tips if you need quick information or just something to look forward to in the future, because we're doing some fun office videos as well.
Yeah, it gets you to know the team at Stanley Law a little bit more up close and personal. And also, as many of you may know, Joe has a very near and dear charitable cause called Music for the Mission. You can find it at musicforthemission.org. A lot of great summer events in Hanover Square starting in a month or so. We've got a big event tomorrow in Binghamton in the Southern Tier to benefit CHOW, which is a wonderful organization who helps serve meals and stockpile food pantries, etc., for those in need. So musicforthemission.org. Thank you, Naamu. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joe, as always. And you'll be able to view this video, certainly share it, comment, etc. It'll be on Facebook, archived, as well as up on the website and our YouTube channel. Stay safe, have fun out there all, enjoy, and we'll see you on social media.
thank
Thanks,
you,
Joe.
everybody. Thank you. That was good. Thank you.
Bye.